And I encourage those who are living the sacrament of marriage, the sacrament of matrimony, to really prayerfully reflect on what their marital intimacy, their sexual lives as married people, what that is all about. It really is a beautiful way of living the reality that all of us are created in the image and likeness of God. Procreation is what is the result at times of a man and woman coming together in sexual intercourse. Another human being, another person is conceived. What a responsibility and what a wondrous gift. At one point in my time as Bishop of Tyler, I wrote an article talking about the devastation that comes from an unchaste life and the glorious fulfillment that comes from living a chaste life. Very often, I think we tend to think of chastity as something that is only for single people or not related to marriage. But really, chastity is that measured approach to our desires, to our drives, to all that we do. Certainly, it is mostly focused on our sexual reality. We are created male and female. And thankfully, at least the secular world in this nation and in other places, it seems to be reawakening to that basic truth, which really is embedded in why the sixth commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery, is so important. Because when that intimacy, the proper intimacy between a man and a woman, is outside the bond of marriage, it is volatile, destructive, and powerfully devastating for our world and for our lives. We need to really prayerfully understand, study, and reflect on what the church really teaches about our sexuality. Very often, we are, as Catholics, accused of simply saying no to the gift of our sexuality. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. No, you may not. And certainly, those are important, basic, foundational elements of understanding the wondrous gift of our sexual nature. God has made us male and female, a complementary division of the human race between male and female that helps us to recognize how we are fulfilled. We need to pray for married couples to truly live what their marriage is, not simply to survive it. I've never been married, of course, but I've talked to a lot of married couples, and I've never heard a couple say that it was easy to live the commitment of marriage. Some struggle desperately, and very often we fail, as all of us fail in sinfulness in one form or another. Very often, married couples fail to really richly and beautifully live the vows that they have made at their marriage. So I think we need to pray for marriages, be compassionate toward them, and urge a return to recognizing that what God has joined together can never be put asunder. The prevalence of divorce is, I believe, if we really prayerfully study what has happened in our world over the past many decades, divorce is one sign of the reality that we are not paying attention to all the ramifications of the sixth commandment. We are made to joyfully embrace the life of God, to be His children, to rejoice in the opportunities that life offers us. Yes, Christ calls us to take up our cross, and we must do so to truly live in Him. But the burdens that we carry are meant to bring us to the fullness of joy. Christ tells us that Himself. He came to us that our joy may be full. And I believe that it's God's plan. And I believe it corresponds with everything that is beautiful about the Catholic Church's teaching. And it truly is beautiful. Yes, it's demanding. Yes, it's difficult to live up to. But we need to, all of us, especially all of us as committed Catholics, not see the demands of the church, the demands of the Sixth Commandment, as something that is strictly burden. Yes, it's burdensome. Yes, it's difficult. All of us fail in one way or another in the area of chastity. But it also bears fruit that is beautiful and glorious, to remember who we are as men and women, to rejoice in those differences, and to seek the complementarity that is so necessary. As I've already mentioned in the previous paragraphs that I read for this podcast, there are many elements of the Sixth Commandment that we must consider. Any violation of our sexuality is devastating for our lives, for our human society, for the church, in every aspect. We have to treat it as seriously as it is, not fearfully, always knowing that God's mercy is there. But we need to set a high standard for ourselves and be joyfully committed to doing our best to live up to that high standard. We might claim rightfully that the world we live in bombards us with sexual images. If we understand advertisers, we know that they specifically make efforts to sell things using the attractiveness of our sexual nature. We've all probably heard sex sells, and it does. In subtle ways, it invades our hearts and our minds and makes things attractive in a way that really has nothing to do with the gift that is our sexual nature. I think it is important to emphasize that it is a gift, but like all gifts, the basic moral code that we are called to live, when you are given a gift or a blessing or an advantage of any kind, it carries with it a responsibility, a duty, a seriousness. And that is especially true for the gift of our sexuality. Let us not allow the culture that exists now, and even voices within our beautiful Catholic faith, let us not allow those voices to turn us from the challenge and the joy of living what the Sixth Commandment is all about. As I've already mentioned, each of the commandments, and as we've discussed, the first six now, they are full of many facets of what it means to live our life in God. We can say that the 10 commandments, the Decalogue, are the foundation of living our lives as godly people, of living what it means to be in relationship with God, ultimately as his children, to live with God in eternity in heaven. The 10 commandments lay down basic laws that radiate out into every aspect of our lives. The Sixth Commandment is critically important in our world today because too many ignore God, ignore our nature created by God in his image and likeness, ignore the reality that it is by God's design that we are male and female. And we must live celebrating that, not worrying about some superficial denominators that say this is what males do, this is what females do, but recognizing there is an ontological, deeply embedded in our existence, a reality of what it means to be male and female.